Welcome to Sports CTO Talks. In this series, we will be connecting with industry leaders from the sports and technology industry, where we will simplify sports and technology. I am Ami, your guide on this journey through the minds of amazing tech leaders and the future of sports. We will dive deep into discussions and understanding innovations into the industry, from AI to cybersecurity, from sustainability to cloud. If it is about sports tech, we are talking about it. Today, we have a very interesting guest from New Zealand joining us on the podcast. We welcome Mr. Jamie Tout. He is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at the New Zealand Campus of Innovation and Sport, a world-class facility that's home to top teams like All Blacks, Black Fern, Phoenix Football, and Hurricanes Rugby. More than just a training ground, NZCIS is a hub for cutting-edge sports, athlete recovery, and global collaborations, attracting teams from across the world, including Sweden during the FIFA Women's World Cup. With state-of-art training fields, performance gyms, recovery centers, and even on-site accommodations, NZCIS is redefining how athletes prepare, recover, and excel. The campus boasts over 400 beds, training facilities, and catering, making it a unique facility in the Southern Hemisphere. But beyond that, they are forging global partnerships in sports media, fan engagement, human performance, education, and marketing. Today, Jamie would be talking about the AI revolution in performance optimization and smart facilities. We welcome you, Jamie, to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Amy. Appreciate being on.
Okay, so my first question to you is how is AI transforming the athlete performance tracking and the analysis?
Well, probably first of all, we need to just congratulate India for their recent championship win in the cricket. They rolled over New Zealand, so yeah, well done to that. But yeah, look, AI, it is the new thing. It's I don't think it's going away. That's for sure. It's only going to get bigger as we go. Certainly, AI is enabling a lot of the tsunami, if you like, of data that's in the sports industry really to be brought to the fore now. So I think the way it's going to probably transform athlete performance in the first instance is just the real-time data collection and analysis, which has otherwise been impossible. Sports data, as a lot of things do, tends to live in silos of information. So whether it's a wearable device or whether it's information off the cameras, ground sensors, or anything else, it's all been living in sort of little silos. I think what AI is going to be able to do is it really enables that to be broken down into a massive lake where performance insights can be more personalized. I think it enables the predictive analysis to identify areas of improvement. It's going to enhance our accuracy in our decision making, whether it's technical, tactical, or physical, and probably in the detail, like the detail in which you can dive into some of the biomechanics that has otherwise been really hard to digest in real time. So, look, in short, I think it's going to provide more real-time analysis and more accurate analysis, and certainly lend itself to predictive models of what could happen next.
Okay, so when you were talking about biomechanics, so how can AI help in driving the biomechanics or the motion tracking, enhance, and even, it can for the training regimes of the trainers, how can it play a role?
Yeah, I think this is not unique to biomechanics. It's probably in coaching as a whole, but let's use the example of a fast bowler in cricket. The best coaches out there, they can see what that athlete might look like. And there's a variation on techniques. And arguably over the years, guys like Dale Steyn would have a technique that you might like to model. And you've got guys like Bumrah, who's not necessarily the norm, but he's got such an amazing output for a very short run. So traditionally, you might look at that as a coach, you might say that doesn't actually look right. But we know Bumrah is really successful about how he can move the ball, the speed that he bowls at, and that sort of stuff is not always seen. So getting that information of landing forces, bowling speed, release speeds that adds into that profile, it may unearth some other ways or techniques of doing things. So I think that's quite exciting.
Okay. So, what are few key performance metrics that AI can analyze? If some specifications if you can share, more effectively than the coaching methods?
Yeah, I think one of the questions you were going to ask really was around that injury prevention and rehabilitation. I think that's a really good area to focus on. And the reason for that is that there's a cost to injury, not just in team performance. There's a monetary cost as well. There's a cost on the athlete's career. So I think when we talk about variations in not just out and out performance, how can it enhance the way that we recover or the way that we sort of can maybe try and predict injury? And that is going to be an argument for a long time. I think we can get better at monitoring load. I think we can get better at identifying risk factors. But at the moment, you would argue that as much as we do to moderate load, as much as we do to understand those risk factors, injuries are still going to happen. What AI can do, though, is help analyze those possible risk factors and may highlight for us when our load management needs to be maybe adjusted. It may highlight to us when there's a higher element of fatigue or lack of preparedness to train. So I think that's where AI, outside of the performance mindset, outside of what we talked about earlier with the biometrics, can really, really have an impact on human performance.
Okay, so like, are there can AI help in personalization of training programs based on real-time data?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think it's, how would we describe it? It's a bit like now when we go on the internet and we're all searching around our different preferences and priorities. For me, it might find that horse racing is a passion of mine. It might find that cricket's a passion of mine. It might find that I like certain foods. Now, that personalization that's happening in the background now when we do our internet searches can be applied in data analytics as well. And whether that's through machine learning, which is just a subset of AI, machine learning is basically taking all those various data sets and enabling that analytics that can look for pattern recognition of how we might change things. That is unique. That is your fingerprint physiologically, or in the case before, I was talking about just in terms of your hobbies, but we're talking about how data in a physical sense can be personalized. And all those different plots or points of data are going to point to what affects you differently, whether it's a recovery modality, a strength modality, how you recover, types of equipment you use. Things can be more personalized. It might find that a certain recovery modality is better for you, not so for me. It might find a certain type of strength training is going to give me a better output than it is for you, than it is for me. So certainly that customization by looking at multiple data sets is more enabled now than it ever has been in the past. If we look at certain metrics, you could think about things that we can't see yet. So I know you had a question down here about performance metrics. Now, traditional coaching methods are based on what you see, and you know whether they score runs, get wickets, they look good or they don't look good when they do certain actions. The things we don't see have often been analysed after the game. It's things like stride length, speed, force outputs, muscle engagement, heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is a really good indicator of stress, tiredness, things like that. Potentially, there's ways and means either during breaks in games, the morning of a game, that evening. We can use things like heart rate variability to manage our athletes in slightly different ways. So I'm going to go with the answer that it's what you don't see in the past is probably what's going to be enabled through AI.
Okay, so like, as you were talking about machine learning, what role does it play into injury prevention and rehabilitation?
Yeah, so machine learning is basically going to be able to take lots and lots of those different silos, and we're going to start finding relationships between some of those information that's lived in silos that relate to another silo that we didn't know about before. Now, it could be the fact that they've used a cold plunge mentality or a cryotherapy or a sauna, and then we find that they're more tired the next day through their heart rate variability when they've used one of those modalities compared to another. It could be through nutrition that we look at the types of foods people are eating, and again affects their recovery or different ways muscles are activated or their energy stores. So I think machine learning, by the ability to access more data sets, it's not a programmed part of AI. So that's probably the key definition here. Machine learning is taking all these data sets and looking for pattern recognition, but it hasn't got a programmed approach to it. Okay, so that where AI is going to potentially in the future create those interventions, machine learning is hopefully going to direct us towards them.
Okay. So, like these days, everything is about wearable technologies, right? So, how do wearable technologies power AI, or rather help optimize players in the recovery or the workload? How does that work?
So wearable sensors, and I think I've got one just to my left here.
Okay.
I do. So those little matchboxes that you see, okay, they come
Okay.
in different shapes and sizes, but this one here is about the size of a matchbox. Now, those little devices there, combined with heart rate, they will measure through internal sensors, GPS, accelerometers, magnetometers, gyroscopes, and heart rate, are predominantly what you find inside those boxes. Those boxes are effectively a data log. They capture all those different sources, and they can either be captured for post-analysis or beamed out in real time. Those boxes are capturing around 1 million data points every 90 minutes per athlete. So that wave or that tsunami of data I talked about before, it can lead to the paralysis analysis approach, where it's so much information that you can't actually digest it and make meaningful decisions quickly. So the appropriate use of tech becomes really important. What metrics are important to you? In terms of AI, what it's going to be able to do is manage a lot of those numbers faster, bring them together sooner, and find the relevant metrics to put in front of the coach, put in front of the athlete, or even potentially put in front of fans and broadcasters. And those metrics can be different. So as we see with that volume of information, usually what happens is a strength and conditioning coach or a physio or someone in the management team will have a very specific data set that they're looking at. With the advent of AI and increasing the ability for us to interpret that as well, what it's going to lead to is probably an awareness or an understanding of which metrics are more relevant for game enhancement, physical development, whether it's enhancing fan engagement. So we can actually start customizing what information is used where. In terms of wearables, the examples would be monitoring heart rate to look at fatigue levels. It could be looking at sleep monitors to look at recovery and sleep patterns. It could be GPS numbers for distance traveled or number of sprints for looking at workload management. It could be looking at recovery rates with injury times and working out what type of training affects those different metrics we just discussed. So I think what it is going to do, it's going to help separate those different data sets out for the people that want to look at them for different reasons.
Okay. So, like, moving forward, like, what role will AI play into the virtual coaching? Like, is it going to impact how the traditional coaching roles or not? How, like, what do you see? What is the transition?
Well, certainly that's one of the biggest challenges probably going forward. You've got new coaches coming through, and it will be common language in the future that AI was it's used in everyday life, and already we see that there's a lot of adopters of that. Potentially, some of your older coaches they aren't using as much AI as the younger coaches. That may be a pattern we see in the future. We still need super coaches to interpret how that information is going to be used. You still are going to need the understanding of leadership, the understanding of character, and how those things influence the outcome of games. So we can't solely rely on AI to do that. So some of the challenges that come with that is the integration of existing systems and new systems. It is the accuracy of that information that's coming in to know that we can't just believe it because it's been published on the internet. And AI does encourage you to check the facts. And I think we're still going to see that, at least for the short term, until they get fed more information. And as they do, the systems will improve. So one of the biggest challenges in the coaching styles at the moment would be the integration between those two things. We're not going to stop it. AI is here to stay. But what we are going to do is try and find appropriate ways to integrate it into the coaching strategy. And whether it's through analyzing other teams and understanding what their playing style might look like or how to sort of best overcome it, what the best matchups are between a fast bowler and a batter on different conditions. Those sort of things are going to become more apparent. So I think there's definitely a challenge there of adapting to the AI revolution, because sport is dynamic. It changes all the time. Some things it's very, very hard to predict. If you could predict everything, then I know the gambling agencies out there would find it very hard to make money because everyone will know the answer. And sport's not like that. There's a lot of unknowns still.
True. So, like, as we were talking about the coaching challenges, what are the other challenges other than the coaching which people are facing due to AI or adapting AI? What are other challenges?
Look, I think it's like any new technology, and I've seen some good examples of this where when you've got so many choices or applications that you try and do it all at once. There's a couple of guys out there, and I'll refer to Nick Gill as being one, the All Blacks strength and conditioning coach, head of performance, sorry now. He talks about doing less things more, not more things less, and diluting it down to such a granular level. You do a bit of everything and nothing really well. And AI is probably going to be like that for the short term for a lot of people. It's not going to solve all your problems. You still need to be a good practitioner. You still need to use it in an appropriate way. It's not going to write your emails and remind you of the birthdays and all that stuff that's sort of fun, but it's not going to overcome the fact of all that game awareness and what you see in front of you, understanding people, creating good relationships. And that's certainly for me something we just need to be cognizant to. It's not the silver bullet. AI can influence the tactical decision making in games and live games. I think it will. I think it'll help analyze our opponent's behaviors and potentially suggest when there's a momentum change. And we know with momentum changes in cricket, it generally leads to maybe wickets for the bowling team or more runs for the batting team. We know with rugby, momentum changes generally lead to points being scored. So for other teams to understand when those momentum changes are happening, maybe there's an intervention strategy they can have to stop that wicket or stop that try being scored. So I think that's certainly something that's going to be relevant for AI in the future. In terms of predictive analysis, we see it in cricket already. You see when one team is suggested to be 85% chance of winning, and then something happens, like it might be Virat Kohli gets out, and all of a sudden the winning percentage changes. So that sort of thing is just going to become more and more advanced. So there's no doubt predictive analysis for the coach, predictive analysis for the broadcasters, that traditional coaches are still going to be required, particularly around strategy, around mental coaching, around creating team unity, leadership, all those different things. What they will now have in their toolbox is a greater data set that's more refined. It's going to be more obvious of where they can look to try and implement those technical or tactical changes, which is exciting.
Absolutely. So, when you were talking about teams, so can AI assist into tactical decisions during real, live games? And if it is happening, what are the pros and cons?
Yeah, so quite a while ago, there was a guy called Ben Darwin who was more sort of machine learning rather than AI back then. I'm talking 10 years ago. But people like Ben were actually taking multiple data sets and looking for pattern recognition of how teams were playing at their home venue to an away venue, how they were playing when they're in front of the game or behind the game, and how their positional decisions may be changed or moving players around or substitutions were managed. In the Australian Football League and the AFL, they had been using data for a long time to look at drop-offs in player intensity. And they were then structuring some of their substitution policies when they could see that drop-off. Now, so those things have been happening for a really long time. All we're seeing now is the ability for that to happen faster and using more data sets. So it's going to be more accurate over time. And it's going to be live. And I think in any industry, whether it's sport, whether it's commercial, whatever you like, let's not saying sport's not commercial, but you get the idea that it's going to continue being more and more refined, so decisions are made faster. The stock market does that. It tries already to try and predict market movements. In a similar vein, we're trying to predict game movements to know when we need to adjust our strategy. So you might buy or sell in sport, change players, move players around if you're trying to get a better outcome and get a better return on the decisions you've made.
True. So, shifting from athletes, like I want to understand about the facility management, this designing a whole sports facilities overall, like how does that work and what is the role of AI into that?
Yeah, they don't exclusively stand alone either, those two things. So when you talk about designing facilities, some really neat people around the world, like Duncan French at the UFC, Andy Walsh, who was with Red Bull, they talk about how you create better workflows. And so AI can look at maybe the movement or heat maps, if you like, in facilities and where people are moving to create some efficiencies. And that leads to less time on feet. It leads to shorter days, potentially, and making sure that everything is under one roof. You're not going through multiple doors. That creates better connections with staff and players and those engagements that you're after. So they're not mutually exclusive, those two things. AI could also potentially, well, it will benefit the environment we create. And that environment I'm talking about is things like temperature, humidity, lighting. So if we're looking at a pools area, you don't want that super cold. You want it somewhere where athletes have got less clothing on. It's a bit warmer. In the gym, you've got lots of people exercising, so it's really important to try and create a more consistent temperature. Things like temperature, then you could consider air quality. So as there's more people breathing out carbon dioxide, how do we moderate that? So do we have carbon dioxide sensors in rooms that then tie back into your mechanical system? So your building management system might then be able to adjust the oxygen available or flush it out, regulate humidity, those sort of things to create a healthier environment. With regards to lighting, already at the campus down here, we have a system whereby the lux level, the lighting level, through daylight harvesting is effectively moderated depending on where the sun moves around the building. Now, that's done through sensors. But over time, you'll be able to find that AI also plays a role in that. And it might be knowing that when there's it's dark outside, or there's more bodies inside, or your booking schedule might turn the lights on in advance of the next team going in there. These things are all going to be more and more tied together. And so when someone makes a booking, it might regulate the room temperature. It might regulate the AC, the mechanical units that adjust airflow or humidity. It might be that the lighting levels change or are brighter. Sorry, same thing. Lighting levels change to be darker or dimmer depending on time of the day or what sport's being played. Cricket, as an example, has a higher requirement for bright lights than, say, a larger ball sport, where it's not moving as fast and the balls are bigger, and therefore the lighting level can change. So there's multiple ways in which training centers can benefit. It could be maintenance schedules. Depending on where the equipment is, AI might help us go in the direction of what equipment needs more work, what areas need more cleaning. There's a company out there called Twin Labs with Peter Gray. Peter Gray has worked a lot in the Tour de France in their data system, but he's got a company now that's looking at how CCTV cameras can be used for monitoring flow in a gym or around facilities. And it can educate people on, they're not using that piece of kit, maybe get rid of that and buy something that are more of what they're already using. It might be that your cleaning or maintenance schedule changes based on where people are spending time.
Okay. So, how does, what is the role of AI into crowd management and the security at the stadiums? What role is it going to play, or rather, what role is it playing right now?
Yeah, look, I think there's multiple things there as well. Like it can streamline your ability to look at traffic management, people management, scheduling, what resources you might require. And all those things tie back to the health and safety and the security. If you can manage your resources more smartly by having the right number of staff on at the right amount at the right time, positioning them in the right places around the campus, you can start developing a smart campus that allows you to sort of say, look, we know at this time of the day for this type of event, we're going to need X amount of staff. We know that those staff, generally, we see congestion in these certain areas around the campus, or we see problems around this area of the campus. hopefully that's going to enable more informed and streamlined decision making and cost efficiencies. So I think there's definitely some things there that you could consider. What I'm not as up to date with, and I know it's been talked about, but it's analysing crowd behaviour. So it might be that a trigger is sent to crowd management when they know that more and more people are clustering into a certain area. And we know with certain clusters of people, whether it's from one fan base and another, potentially those groups coming together lead to a level of hostility or problems. It might be when you've got an outlier. And by that, I mean there's one person over here, but there's 100 people over there. Why is that one person by themselves? Like, it might trigger an alert to just go and check on that person, whether they're in trouble or there's something gone wrong or what it might be. So I think those sort of things around crowd management and security are again good uses of potentially existing technology, but being enhanced by the use of AI.
Okay. And another aspect is like, how AI can manage sustainability, because that is a thing and it is very important, for energy efficiency. So what role does that play into
Yeah,
any
look, it
part
goes
of performance? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, all good. So look, it plays two roles. It goes back to the question around how the facility is managed, and there's obviously some operational cost efficiencies on not leaving the lights on, turning screens off when people aren't there. We've got light sensors in rooms that go off when there's no one there, but there's not always that same process applied to other systems. So in the campus, we do have the ability to schedule the TVs to go off. We have the ability to regulate the lights. We have the ability to look at ground moisture sensors in the fields to either have less or more moisture put onto the fields. So there's all those types of things that hopefully reduce your power bill, hopefully reduce the stress on the local infrastructure. You'd hate to think that a facility that's 18 hectares like the campus here is drawing on resources constantly that we don't need. So we need to challenge ourselves as well as to look for those other abilities, if you like, to make the campus more efficient. That's everything from, like I said, lighting, heating, cooling, reducing your waste, and all the usual suspects like your water and energy consumption as well.
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions, Jamie, but I'll ask you one last question into this segment. That is like, looking forward in the next 3 years or next 5 years, what is the next big breakthrough you are seeing into AI for athlete performance and sports infrastructure?
I think, like anything, it's just probably going to be an awareness of how to use these tools effectively. It's nearly like the power is now at your fingertips, and it's going to go through a curve. And that curve is going to be the uptake of education and the ability to use the tools appropriately. To draw back to the GPS example, when that first became a thing, sort of I'm talking 2004, 2005, it was a whole bunch of information we never had access to. And it's taken a long time for people to settle on what to look at, how to look at it, how to become more efficient. So I think there's certainly a real growth or evolution that's coming. I think the applications around whether you use it in performance, whether you use it in augmented reality in stadiums or game day experiences, and probably it's going to be the ability to showcase a lot of those things that have been hidden away in real time. And that's going to be really exciting for both the sports professional, but the broadcaster. And to have those things fully integrated, not sitting in those silos anymore, but broken down into the lake, is where we can start seeing the real superpower in AI. But you're going to caveat all that by saying that there is still that element of checking the truth. It's at the moment, you've got multiple data sources being fed into AI. We've got multiple people out there doing some amazing things. You've got the Googles and the Microsofts and the Apple, all the usual suspects. In India, you've got the Tata Group, who are, I know, if they'll be looking at AI in a big way across their multiple industries, travel, tourism, manufacturing of steel, health, education. So I'm sure we'll see some really cool things come out of that group as well.
Absolutely. So, like, we'll move on to the next segment now. That's the rapid fire round. I'll ask you a few questions. You'll have to be quick in answering. You cannot think, okay?
Rightio.
Okay. So, what's your go-to pump-up song before a big project or a event?
Oh, look, I don't tend to have pump up songs, but I do have a lot of songs. I'm a big country music fan, and probably if I had a go to that's been very special to me over the years is Piano Man by Billy Joel. It's a celebration song for us. It's something that I have good memories of.
Okay. Describe your personality in a hashtag.
An optimistic innovator.
Okay. If you could have a dinner with any athlete, past or present, who would it be?
Wow. Look, I like the Michael Jordan. I'd like to dig into his brain a bit more.
Absolutely. Early bird or a night owl?
I am definitely a night owl. Yeah.
Okay. If your life were a sports movie, what would the title be?
What would it be? There's a Māori whakatoki that talks about kohe mate whekimati iri rua. And effectively what that means is don't die like an octopus, die like a mangapari, a hammerhead shark. So the moral of the story is never give up.
Okay.
Octopus dies too easy, the mangapari keeps fighting. So yeah, it's in sport, never give up.
Okay. If you had a time machine, which sports era would you travel to? Quick.
Don Bradman, Babe Ruth. They were both around the sort of the 1920s, I think, roughly. I think
Okay.
sport was an incredible vehicle as a connector back then. We didn't have a lot of TV. People went to the event, they watched the event. There was no second screen. Yeah, I just think that would be a cool era to see some of the best that ever lived in a really connected way. Be cool.
Okay. Coffee or energy drinks? What keeps you going?
Coffee, probably with a splash of Red Bull every now and again at the right time.
Okay. If you had a mascot for your life, what would it be?
Look, my mascots now, my boys. Yeah, the two boys I've got. If you could mash those two kids together, you'd get a pretty cool outcome. And they've both got
Absolutely.
different traits, so yeah, they're important. They're really special.
Okay. If you could swap lives with one famous personality from sports for one day, who would it be?
Do you say female or say famous?
Famous.
Famous. Okay. I think something. If I was, I'm not good at golf. If I could really hang out with DeChambeau or one of those cool golfers and just see what it's like to do what they do. Tiger Woods back in the day, Rory McIlroy, those sort of guys. Like I can't play golf. I'm an absolute hack. So as much as it's not my thing, I'd probably like to see how good they are, and they are just amazing what they do.
Okay. Describe sports technology philosophy in 3 words.
3 words. I'll take the liberty of the first one having a hyphen. It's data driven. Um, Second one, it has to be personalized. Okay, so personalized to you or the team. And the last one, impactful. It needs to make a difference. We can't just collect information, we need insights. So I think the 3 words would be data driven, personalized, and impactful.
Awesome. We'll move on to the next segment. That is, you will have to answer this one question into 30 seconds. According to you, what is AI or what is the role of AI in performance optimization and smart facilities?
Okay, let's start the clock. Right. Look, AI is revolutionizing performance and optimization in sports facilities in athletes by using data to personalize athlete training, recovery, injury prevention. We're going to see again a step forward in sport. With real-time feedback, AI does tailor our programs, or it can tailor our programs for optimal results. We're not hopefully can get rid of some of the distractions. So while smart facilities use AI to create ideal environments and training and recovery facilities, there is still a need for hands-on interaction with coaches. AI systems track athlete metrics and adjust workloads, enhance performance by analyzing every aspect of the athlete's regime and environment, but it still doesn't always get inside the character or the person. So that's still going to be a massive factor. Going forward, the integration of AI in sport ensures a more effective, data-backed decision-making approach to both training and, as we talked about today, in facility management.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie, for the insightful session and joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
So everyone, let's stay connected for more understanding about sports technology in the future. Please share this podcast with your friends, families, and the people who love sports and technology. That was Jamie sharing his insights today. Thanks for tuning in once again, and we will see you in the next episode next time. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring.